We are watching a slow motion train wreck unfolding right before our very eyes. Just the other week, we were talking about how Biden's previous nominee to head the Federal Aviation Administration had to drop out after his embarrassing hearing in which he couldn't answer basic questions on how planes or airports worked. We joked at the time about how being fluent in the language of power, our modern age's lingua franca, which is wokeism, means that experts no longer need to have expertise in their respective fields. Now add to that decades of globalism giving us cheaper quality products and IT that's been outsourced or green carded away to foreigners brought over to work for less than Americans would work for, and it seems like our current air travel industry is one giant ticking time bomb. I'm afraid the fuse for this might be Biden and his transportation secretary's latest announcement. Take a listen.
That's why I'm announcing a second critical step today to protect American consumers. Later this year, my administration will propose a historic new rule that will make it mandatory, not voluntary, but mandatory for all U.S. airlines to compensate you with meals, hotels, taxis, ride shares, and rebooking fees, and cash, miles, and/or travel vouchers whenever they're the ones to blame for the cancellation or delay. And that's all on top of refunding the cost of your ticket. Airline passengers in Canada, for example, the European Union, and other places already get these compensations. And guess what? It works.
Now, you know me, I'm obviously no shill for corporate airlines, so don't mistake this as me playing the white knight coming to the rescue of woke behemoths which use their money and cultural weight to advocate for evil ideologies. Instead, what I fear, and again, I fully admit this is speculation, but warranted speculation, at least I think on my part, is that given how incentives work in this nation, this could push airlines to rush more flights out in order to not lose so much money with these new proposed federal compensations, therefore risking passenger safety. That's what I'm worried about. And rather than cancel or delay a flight for maintenance out of an abundance of caution, rather than have them grab a bunch of lawyers to worry if such a cancellation or delay would meet the administration's definition of a controllable flight cancellation, and therefore would necessitate a huge cost to the company. They had to get a $50 billion bailout from Uncle Sam back in 2020, which is really from you and I, the taxpayer they stole it from, so who knows what their ledgers show. As to Biden's point about it working in Europe, well, Europe has different cultures and different incentives in place, so maybe a plan like that could work there, regardless of how it further shows that there really is no dividing line between big business and big government these days in any Western country, with the cost of the red tape coming down heavily on the middle class. So I'd rather look to how these kinds of incentives work here in the United States, accounting for our particular ways of doing things. Which brings me to the Department of Health and Human Services. HHS whistleblowers have revealed in recent months that since the department gets sued for having underage kids in their custody for too long, think the kids in cages optics, that there is a perverse incentive for them, the HHS, to farm these children out as soon as possible to basically anyone willing to claim themselves as a relative or sponsor. This has led to many children finding themselves in the custody of sex traffickers, pretending to be aunts or uncles or other sponsors. The feds have lost track of an estimated 85,000 children, an incomprehensible figure. But again, that's how our incentives work in our corrupt political structure. HHS fears lawsuits and losing money, so they risk child safety. Will the FAA or airline companies be any different when it comes to passenger safety? I'm afraid not. And now a new HHS Inspector General report is backing up those whistleblower testimonies. The watchdog found that large numbers of employees at these migrant shelters are not undergoing required background checks for child abuse, neglect, or sexual offenses, either at all or in a timely manner when the vetting process does actually take place, leaving children who've already been preyed on by coyotes, cartel members, and other migrants at the mercy of more unvetted individuals who may be about to hand them off without a second thought to a random sponsor who might be a human trafficker. For these reasons and more, GOP governors must repel the border invasion, as our first guest tonight writes about a new piece out today. So joining us now to discuss is Daniel Horowitz, a senior editor for The Blaze and the host of the Conservative Review podcast. Daniel, thanks for being here tonight.
Great to be back with you, Kara.
Great. So you start off your piece with a bit of a black pill moment, arguing that we are kind of out of luck at the federal level about getting DHS to do its job at the border, and that we can't necessarily wait around until 2025, assuming we even get a Republican in the White House. So you say something.